Good morning. It is Veterans Day here in the United States, and it's also the feast of St. Martin of Tours. So happy day to everybody observing those things today. And I wanted to bring some good news for once, and it's not because of those days. It's a I guess a happy coincidence. But of course, we can't always start with good news because something came across my desk that it's going to be me suggesting that you pray for this person. So I'm going to see if we can try something a little bit different here than I've ever tried before, which is my share screen option, which I had a good friend suggest that I try. So here we go. Let's try this. We have news from Gloria TV. Rome. A nuncio passed away on asphalt, and he was left there for 3 hours. So I don't know anything about him at all, but no prince of the church, no prince of the apostles deserves to be treated in this way. So please pray for the repose of the soul of former nuncio Francois Bach. I don't know how to pronounce his name. My apologies. He passed away of a heart attack on November 9th at 11 a.m. in the Via dei Scrofani in Rome, near the ecclesiastical residence where he lived. According to an Italian news site, he was quickly reached by medical personnel, but he passed away shortly upon their arrival. And despite all that, he remained there on the asphalt, covered with a cloth, until 2 p.m. when he was taken away. Yeah, so that's how we treat princes of the church now. I don't know what thinking it is. Let me know in the. I'm trying not to sneeze right now. Let me know if in the chat if you were able to see the Gloria TV thing I just put on the screen. Um, Trying to make it so it can work, so you can see what I'm going off of. But and also I try not to sneeze, and if my voice is a little hoarse, it's because about a month ago I rolled my ankle the day I was going to do my last yard work for the fall, and yesterday I was finally able to do it, but the grass was all basically white at that point and very dusty, and it sounds like I'm ill. Plus, my wife is coming down with something, so maybe I am. I don't know yet. A little coffee is keeping the voice working. You could see it. Very good. Very good. That's good news. Good news. We're trying to up the quality of our live streams here. Um, anyway, so pray for the repose of the soul of that nuncio, knowing nothing else about him, whether he was a saint or a sinner or a Bergoglian, I don't know. But pray for the repose of his soul. No prince of the church should be treated in that way. Let's move on to the good news, though. Modernists on social media are not happy about this news that I'm going to share with you. You may have seen this shared in your various, like if you're part of any Facebook Catholic groups, especially ones that lean towards being traditional. I'm going to give you a caveat here. Nowhere in what I'm about to report to you does it say traditional priests. But again, a lot of people don't make a distinction between merely conservative and traditional priests. So here we go. We're going to go with my favorite with the story I think that a lot of people should not pass up on. And here it's headline from The Pillar. Study. Liberal US priests facing progressive extinction. You can understand why there's a certain group out there who are very upset about this. These are the people who tend to conflate their politics with their faith. And while we certainly see that among, traditional Catholics and Catholics who are sympathetic with traditional Catholics, you will see that, right? But so it's an error. Don't fall into it. But our participation and the ideologies of the world should make us very uncomfortable. Even ones that more closely align with us, who are at least not hostile to us, they should still make us uncomfortable because they are across the spectrum filled with errors. They just are. And we don't fit neatly into a box. But it's also impossible to ignore the fact that in the broader world right now, there's a certain ideology that is overtly hostile to the faith. So these kinds of times make for odd bedfellows. Let's get to this article from The Pillar, though. Quote, the share of new U.S. Catholic priests identifying as theologically progressive has fallen so low that the phenomenon has all but vanished, according to a report published Tuesday. The 18-page report issued November 7th by the Catholic University of America, that's key, in Washington, D.C., said that when priests were asked to describe their theological outlook on a spectrum from very conservative/orthodox to very progressive, None of those ordained after 2020 described themselves as very progressive. The report included a graph showing that the proportion of priests who identified as somewhat progressive or very progressive fell from almost 70% among those ordained in 1965 to 1969. If you've ever encountered priests from that era, you've almost certainly dealt with somebody among that 70%. And it's to now less than 5% among those ordained in 2020 or later. Researchers said there was a similar drift away from political liberalism towards moderate and conservative positions. That's why I started with the political side of this. Simply put, the proportion of new priests who see themselves as politically liberal or theologically progressive has been steadily declining since the Second Vatican Council and has now all but vanished, the report said. The report, entitled Polarization, Generational Dynamics, and the Ongoing Impact of the Ted McCarrick Problem, presented the further insights from the National Study of Catholic Priests conducted by the Catholic Project. The study, billed as the largest of its kind in more than 50 years, consisted of a census of bishops with 131 responses, a survey of 10,000 priests with more than 3,500 responses, and in-depth interviews with more than 100 priests. And I'll just go and finish here. The authors of the new report caution against a simplistic interpretation of priests' response to questions seeking to gauge their theological and political outlooks. End quote. I'm going to emphasize that for you here because they go on to say, Orthodox, conservative, or progressive compared to what? Right? That's a valid thing. It's still good news, though, isn't it? I mean, we will not have nearly as many of these wacky priests very soon. Some are interpreting this, by the way, this kind of news to suggest that the priests who will give you the Francis line, basically, those kind of priests will be gone very soon. They'll be retired, and parishes are continuing to shrink. I would hope that the presence of an Orthodox priest is actually going to help stop that process. Because a lot of people, when they come to mass on Sunday, everybody, I think at some point in their life, usually it's a sign you need to go to confession, but you get that, I don't want to go to mass today. Come on. You'd rather stay in bed. Well, there are a lot of people who don't understand that that's, usually a sign they need to go to confession. And so they sit there on Sunday and then they hear silly stuff from the AMBO, right? Why would you continue going to mass if you are hearing the silly stuff that makes it sound like you don't need to be there? I mean, think about it. There's a lot of people who make that decision because they get just a kind of a wishy-washy priest, or worse, like, a Bergoglian priest. Margaret Mary says, now we know why Francis had attacked the U.S. so hard, meaning the priests in the United States. Yes. Must have had 10 second of rewatch video. Rinse my sinuses. I mean, I've got stuff. I don't know. We'll see. Rinsing sinuses can be a kind of tricky thing to do, actually. But that's not where this story, would you say this reliable? That sample size is great. You can determine within a couple percentage points how a presidential election in America is going to go on an honest survey that with a good sample size. It's just that a lot of the ones we've seen in the last decade haven't been honest. And you can see it usually when they say, well, we asked members of party X at way higher percentage than the members of party Y. And amazingly, party X's candidate is ahead, and then it doesn't turn out to be the case. But if you do it properly, this is one of the things I studied in grad school. Like, I am not a math person. In like high school, I made it basically through like algebra 1 with a lot of struggle. But in grad school, to my PhD, I had to go through do quantitative research methods, which is statistics. And so in the hardest classes of that, they all happened to have as a teacher's assistant somebody that was in my program who was the kind of person who absolutely loved math. It was like their thing. And so it was a person who was a teaching aide. So I ended up being in their office hours every single day for hours, just so I can get the B I need to do. But I understand research design. I can tell you that a 3,500 pre-sample size is pretty good. So reliable, yeah, and I don't think this organization has an axe to grind. But, and good morning to everybody joining us. So I started this stream with a request for a priest for the repose of the prayers for the repose of the soul of a former papal nuncio. He was mostly in Europe and Asia. Somebody I'd never heard of, but he passed away on the street in Rome, and then he was just left lying there for a few hours before he's taken away. No prince of the church deserves to be treated that way. Saint or sinner, no one does. So please pray for the repose of the soul of former Nuncio Francois Bach, which I'm probably mispronouncing his name. But that's actually good news, right? The seminarian issue. Well, let's go back. Let's go further down into this. Also from the pillar, we get this story. FSSPC seminarian membership growth. So not only are you getting more theologically correct seminarians, just across the board, you're getting growth among the FSSP and not just them, by the way. We'll take a look at that here in a moment. But you're getting them the traditional orders. The writing is on the wall. This is actually, I think, the driving force behind Traditionis Custodes, and the driving force behind synodality and all the rest of it. Because if we can see this, I'm sure Rome can see it too, and they could probably see it's not just an America thing. Let me know in the comments if you're watching this from Europe, if you're watching this from Australia, if you're hearing similar things in your own countries. I'd be very curious. So this article says, quote, the traditionalist priestly fraternity of St. Peter has more seminarians and members than ever before, according to newly published statistics. Annual figures released November 1st show that the Society of Apostolic Life, a community of priests who do not take religious vows, has more than 200 seminarians for the first time since it was founded in 1988. Among the 201 seminarians in 2023, there are 22 deacons and 179 non-deacons, including postulants. This is an increase of 15 on the year before, when there were a total of 186 seminarians, including 17 deacons. A breakdown of the 179 non-deacons in 2023 showed that they included 58 candidates from the United States, 36 from France, 10 from Germany, 9 from Spain, 8 from Portugal, 7 from Italy, and 6 from Poland. FSSP seminaries trained at the International Seminary of St. Peter in Germany, Our Lady of Guadalupe Seminary in Denton, Nebraska, and Ezekiel House, a house of studies for first-year candidates in Sydney, Australia. Total FSSP membership, that means priests, deacons, the rest of them, has increased from 542 in 2022 to 569 in 2023, including 368 priests who account for 65% of all members. The Confraternity of St. Peter, a sodality for FSSP supporters, that's you, the laity, has 9,546 members, more than two-thirds of whom are English speakers. Now, I would say that the only part of the news that I don't like regarding the FSSP is that it's mostly English speakers. So that's great for America, Canada, Western Europe, Australia, and a few other places, Belize, and some other places. Not as good news for everybody else, though. But it's still good news. But now we can go here and give you another zoom out just a little bit more. And I know this is not the most official source. We're going to go to a good Twitter account here who went further. Seminarians in the FSSP are about 200. The Institute of Christ the King Sovereign Priest, which is one of the smallest but still widely known priestly fraternities, traditional priestly fraternities, stands at 100 or about. And the SSPX stand at 268 seminarians. And I find that to be fantastic. That's all good news. I am pro traditional priestly fraternity. I don't care which group it is. Yes, I have an opinion on the SSPX versus FSSP split. I think they need to work it out among themselves. I don't find most laity, I find, taking sides on that to be weird. I have some exceptions if you want to hear. I am very pro SSPX, but anti FSSP. In fact, I go to mass with the FSSP most of the time. But a good defense of the SSPX, you should, if you want one, go start watching Kennedy Hall's videos on it. He's very knowledgeable and very passionate about it. But that's good news for us today, folks. Good news. That also reminds me, speaking of seminarians and things, I have been sitting on this for a few days. I keep forgetting it's been sitting on my desk. I was given a 2024 traditional liturgical calendar. This is for the 1962 liturgical calendar. Okay. And I was asked, so like there's the art for the month of May, right? Beautiful traditional art. I don't get paid anything to show you this. I mean, they gave me one of these, so I have a calendar for next year now, and it's got nice art. It comes from the Seraphim Company, and they ask that to let you, the subscribers and followers, know about their calendar. Also, please let them know that they offer a free calendar to any priest or seminarian requesting it. That's for priests and seminarians. They can get a free one, okay? They are hoping that the traditional Latin Mass may be promoted by the distribution of the calendar, which accurately lists the feast days and other liturgical days celebrated during each season. They're presented in a clear and easy to read fashion. To all Catholics who wish to practice a deeper interior life, the liturgical calendar is a beautiful and inspiration daily reminder of God and his heavenly truths. They've included a special guide along with a mini catechism of the essential teachings of the Catholic faith, a list of patron saints, and a section of prayers. And some other things in there too. I have an email address for priests and seminarians who would like one. So email me. You can find it in the description box of any video I upload, probably including this live stream. If not, I'll make sure that's there. Please check in, email me, and I can pass on that email address to you. Just make sure in the subject line you put calendar for priests and seminarians, and that way I can see, because I have 700 emails in my inbox right now. Yeah. This is why I ask you not to CC me on emails to your priests. Don't send me videos generally, please. I don't have time to watch most of those things. It's why if you've been waiting on a reply for some emails, I just haven't been able to do it. I have a really full inbox right now. When we see a soccer match between trads and Novus Ordos, I don't know, maybe an interseminary thing. I visited a monastery in Oregon, Mount Angel, which is also a seminary run by a Benedictine group. It's for the Archdiocese of Portland under Archbishop Sample. He is one of the good ones. And I do know that they do play collegiate sports there. I don't remember if it's just between other seminaries or not, but I think I think it's not a bad thing. Athletic competition is good. I tend to agree with Thomas Jefferson on that. Traditionalist Catholic says he thinks he should let the clergy hash it out among themselves. I want the leadership of the two organizations to work it out, really. And eventually the hierarchy will work out the SSPX thing. They're in limbo canonically. That they're not in schism, though. I really wish people would stop saying that. Joe Boiling, my son, is at Benedictine College, and we are rectangle, mostly Kansas. That's funny. But let's see. I have been to Perth, Teresa. I found it to be a beautiful city. Briefly, about 10 years ago, I thought about relocating there. Wasn't happy with the way America was. Well, in hindsight, I'm very glad I didn't, though. So the good people of Australia were in my prayers during the events of a couple years ago. But yes, Perth is beautiful. And I was staying in a town, Joondalup, I think it was, probably mispronouncing it, but it was like a 20-minute walk to the beach. It was wonderful. Good morning, Miriam. Good morning to everybody joining late. Again, I will say, please pray for the repose of the soul of this bishop here. He was a papal nuncio, former nuncio Francois Bach, at the age of 87, who passed away on November 9th, and he was just left lying in the street for several hours, even though the paramedics were there. No prince of the church should be treated in that way. Full stop. You know how I like to do things here. I like to keep things relatively short. So if you've got questions, this is the time to ask. This is the time to ask them with whether a question or a super chat. This is your opportunity. And I will be doing a live stream tomorrow night on probably not a good news story, unfortunately. But just a couple minor things here. I have going live here in 15 minutes the account of an incredible exorcism as accounted for by a traditional priest a century ago. It's from his own writings. I featured his writings here before. I would recommend you watch that. And then I've got, for those of you who are on the fence about the Francis Duby baptism story and think, well, Vigano's not the best person to respond. Well, Cardinal Gerhard Mueller just issued a scathing response too. And he goes over the history of the question, the core question, which is unrepentant public sinners admitted to the sacraments. And he goes over the history of it and tells you why this is completely heretical. He never uses the word heresy. But then again, he did accuse Francis and Fernandez of being material heretics several days ago. So thank you once again for tuning in, folks. Since it looks like there's no more questions, Teresa says, if I come back to Australia, come visit. With a wife and 3 children, it's a little harder. It was really expensive in those days, and it's more expensive now. Plus, 24 hours of flight for 5 people is just, yeah. But it's a goal one day. It's a beautiful country. And I found it to be, it was weirdly compared to any other country I'd been to, or any other place I'd been to, it was weirdly the most American in a positive way. Other than some of your restrictions, we'll say, on certain coveted rights here in America. But I found it the easiest place to travel when I was there. So, um, did you do any kind of other any other sort of sacrifice? That I don't like the new fasting rules the church has. I don't, but the church has the right to govern them. I just, taken with everything else, it's a problem. I would mention it in confession with your traditional priest. That's what I would do. Um, Good idea to go to confession in general, anyway. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, folks. I thank you for watching. Check out that exorcism story and the Cardinal Mueller thing that I just had up, and I will catch you in the next stream. May God bless you, and remember to pray for that papal nuncio.